welcome to the Social Changemakers Podcast. I am your host, Khalilah Denney, and today we have a special conversation for you. I know you may be aware that this month, the month of April, is a Second Chance Awareness Month. And I just had an amazing time at the 4th Annual 2024 National Returning Citizens Conference. It was, like when I say amazing, awesome. It was amazing, right? Amazing, and my guests today that are here with me, not only are they partners in the work that I do in my nonprofit, which is the Denney House, they too attended the conference, right?
Yes.
Right, and we're gonna have a deep dive conversation into the work that they do, their experience with the conference, as well as who they are as individuals. So our first guest to my left is Apostle Robbins, who's also not only my partner, he's my mentor, he is my teacher. I have come through a certification for life coaching through his organization, who he's gonna share more about that with us, and so much more. Phenomenal guy, right? And now I am not going to butcher your name, Ms. Louise, but Louise is also a partner of ours who is just integral in us staying connected with our returning citizens. The Pokket app is an app that we use to support our individuals who are in our transitional housing program. And Louise is the founder, one of the founders of the Pokket app. At a syllabus. Yes.
I'm Louise Wasilewski with a civilate, so I specialize in difficult to spell and say names.
Yes, exactly. So first, I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to just talk about your experience at the conference the last 3 days.
It was absolutely awesome. We enjoyed that. I was just talking to Louise just a little bit ago about the value of what we received from this conference. The networking that took place, the old faces that I knew, we reconnected with, the information that we received and we gave at this conference was absolutely just marvelous for my experience. It just really, I marveled at a lot of the things that were said there, testimonies that was given. This little girl at the end that was talking about their dad, their grandfather, how much glad they were to see them back, the grandfather back. It was just a powerful story. Really enjoyed myself. It was really a good time.
Yeah,
very fruitful.
I know my highlight was listening to the story of the guy from Flip.
Marcus.
Yes.
That was
Flick Shop. Now, wasn't that phenomenal? I tell you, we are very was entrepreneurial spirit, right? For him to have his mom sending him pictures while he was behind the walls on a daily basis, and then come out and end up translating that into a multi-million-dollar platform that's helping other people.
Absolutely.
That's helping other returning citizens, and now helping people in senior facilities and helping people who are veterans who are overseas stay connected to their families.
Absolutely.
That was the highlight for me.
That's pretty good. Absolutely.
Yeah. How about you, Louise?
Yeah. So one of my friends texted me and said, which conference are you stuck at this weekend? And my response was, this is not one of the ones I'm stuck at. This is something I choose to come to because it is just so encouraging to be around other people doing the work and to be around people who are success stories. And, I'm a behind the scenes person. I do technology. I empower people like you two who are doing the frontline work. And so I can get caught up in paperwork and technology, and it is really important to remember who we are all doing the work for, who we are doing the work with. I had the opportunity to meet people in person, like Donna Cobb, that I'd only met virtually before. I found myself sitting next to somebody that I'm like, hang on, are you this guy?
Yes.
We were working on a project together in Arizona.
Okay.
And with another partner, and I never met him. So it's just great to to be able to hug the people you
That's
talk
right.
to.
Yeah.
And I think in terms of impact for me, this conference had a lot of emphasis on women's issues.
Mm-hmm.
And
Sure enough.
the proportion of women in the criminal justice system has grown.
Mm-hmm.
And women need different treatment, need different conditions.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was wonderful to hear women talking about how women should be treated, not men talking about how women should be treated.
Yeah.
And women who have been in the system talking about their own experiences.
Yeah.
And with no disrespect at all to researchers, if you're a researcher that hasn't lived it, you are one step removed. That is not primary research, that's secondary.
That's
So
right.
we, for me, it was wonderful to hear from women in their own, their own experiences and their own.
That was really cool. That
Yeah.
was really cool. Yeah, and by the way, it's just good being with you.
Yeah.
And your podcast. Look at you.
Yeah.
We did a shop today and
Yeah.
about housing and how much
Wasn't that
information.
phenomenal?
Oh, it was phenomenal because you and others made it phenomenal. I mean, the information that we were drawing out of you as I was moderating that,
Mm-hmm.
but you brought a lot of key points and information that audience, and you see, they were so hungry. They were like, give us more. They didn't really want to stop. And so thank you for what you do, and you have grown a lot and you've done a lot. And so God bless you so
Well,
much.
thank you. You know that means a lot to me coming from you. The housing piece here in Prince George's County is taking traction, and they're really doing everything I think they should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
There's more to be done, of course, but they are putting their dollars behind, where the mouth is, and I'm seeing it. But like I said, there's more that needs to be done.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well, it's just getting started is half of the thing, and you've gotten something started.
Yeah.
You're helping that population in a very powerful way.
Yeah.
You're using the coach approach. You're doing it right. You're doing it even with faith-based. You're connecting with your community and your resources in this community and the change makers in the community.
That's right.
I see you practicing what you preach.
Oh, I appreciate it.
That's
Apostle,
real.
You're so kind. So well, at this point, we all had a great time at the conference, right? So I'm just going to dive right into, share a little bit of your story. I'm going to just start with you, Apostle.
Sure.
Don't feel left out. You can engage in the conversation.
So we're all good.
You're all good. You're all good. Mr. Robinson, let's tell us, where you are today, who you are as an individual, what you would want our audience to know. Just, speak from the heart and let us know who Lee Robinson is.
I can tell you my first desire to get into the reentry space was ignited when I had done some time in prison myself. As I did that time, obviously no one wants to be in prison, but God has a plan for you. And as an innocent person in prison, I was first angry with God and man and myself for allowing a paper crime with no money attached to it to get me 3.5 years in a federal prison. However, God knows how to work things together for the good.
Yes, He does.
And He did it for me on the inside.
Yes.
And so that's where I pull from. That's where a lot of things.
Why.
That's my why.
Yeah.
And when I saw the pain in there, I thought, I know what I'm supposed to do in life. I mean, I'm supposed to be a pain reliever. and when I saw all of those things that the men were going through, and now women are going through right now in a big way, I said, I just have to be a solutionist. And I'm an entrepreneur anyway.
Right.
So some people, I use my entrepreneur skills to build businesses and ministries to help people coming out of prison.
And that's what I want you to talk about. You dive right into that story, that history, and I like to get the audience to know who you are today.
Yes.
And then we can paint that, go back and paint that picture. But thanks for the segue there.
Yeah. And so really today I'm a CEO of Life Empowerment Enterprises, which is a life coach certification company. I certify life coaches, hundreds and thousands of life coaches, and we have one right here, amen, a certified life coach through that organization. I'm also a pastor of a senior pastor of a church in Georgia.
The Source
Church Unlimited.
Yeah.
I am also the president of Vital Signs Housing, Reentry Housing, where we bring in life back into the community.
That's right.
We do Uplift transportation system where we're helping returning citizens to get a free ride to work, to the probation office, to the courts, to classes.
Yes.
And we're just using those wraparound services under the same roof, doing what we do to reduce prison recidivism and advance the kingdom of God.
Yes.
So that's what we're doing.
And safe staffing.
I'm about to say, yeah. Louise is on it. He's like, you not letting that slide.
Louise was like, when I was on the panel, she was texting me, tell them this, tell them that. Safe Staffing is actually a company when I was working for the state of Georgia as a community coordinator, AKA probation and parole.
Wow.
As I was working with them, I started Safe Staffing, and I decided to resign at that point so I can start Safe Staffing, so it would be a conflict of interest.
Right.
And I started Safe Staffing, and I gave up a job to help them get jobs. So Safe Staffing stands for Spiritual and Financial Empowerment Staffing.
Yeah.
So we hire returning citizens to get jobs and to move forward. Get a job, develop a career, and become entrepreneurs for some of them.
Listen.
And so that's Safe Staffing.
That is phenomenal. I mean, so if you didn't know why he's on this podcast as a social change maker, you know now. That your story is just so it just melts my heart. You know what I mean? And it's so uplifting because, like you said, you started. You were a change maker before you went behind the walls, I believe.
Oh.
As a pastor, being in the situation you were in, taking that opportunity and just making it, making sure it was to glorify God in the best way that you know how, helping others while you were behind the walls.
I have a joy helping people.
And just the strategic thought process of, I'm going to get out and I'm going to make sure that, no one else has to experience this, and that we're going to break down all barriers.
Yes.
And that's exactly what you have done.
Well, my pain has become purpose.
That's right.
That's why I wrote the book on it.
That's right. That's right. So I'm going to give Louise a chance to, share it with us right now as well. Just tell us who you are today, whatever you would like the audience to know about you as an individual and your success story.
Yeah, so today I'm CEO of the Civil Aid, co-founder of that company. I'm involved in the American Probation Parole Association on their technology committee. I have an MBA from Emory University. I have a rocket science engineering degree from Southampton in the UK. I have 5 patents to my name. And so most of those things would say I'm a success.
Oh, you are.
Mm-hmm. And the other side of the story is when I was 14, my father got a conviction. Mm-hmm. And as a result of that, he lost his job, couldn't get hired for the type of work he was qualified for. Mm-hmm. So he did day laboring, which is a very unreliable source of income. Mm-hmm. And so, my family lived through the collateral consequences of being justice involved. Mm-hmm. So I had the teacher who said, I put a note in your file so that, when you get in trouble, the other teachers will know why. Mm-hmm. But I was fortunate. The night my father was arrested was the night I gave my life to Christ. Mm. Because God promises to be our good father.
Yes, He does.
And this was my stepdad, who was my good dad, that I felt had let me down. Mm. And my original father, he ran off when I was just a couple of months old. Yeah. So I wanted to see if this promise that God makes to be our father was true.
True.
Yeah.
And I will say, my dad's greatest crime was probably ignorance. Mm. And he endured what he endured with tremendous dignity. Mm. Yeah. But I have such a strong memory of him sitting at the dining table with the newspaper open, this was before the internet, and he had applied for every job in the newspaper. And he was like willing another job.
Well, that's a powerful story. It reminds me of mine because I'm here because of my every single male in my family, in my immediate family, were justice involved. My mom and my dad met in a juvenile detention center. My oldest son has had, some encounters with the law that has, set him back several years. And it's really important to me that, I'm able to help anyone that I can, provide them with access to opportunity. Whether it's access to a job, whether it's access to experience, whether it's, training, or just a place to lay your head and, have, some food to eat.
Yeah.
So,
Catch your breath.
Yeah, really.
And
Yeah. So with that, it's like, where should I go? The backstories. You started on your backstory, where you was telling us about your time being incarcerated. And I know there's a lot of information out there. Whatever, share with us, what that part of life was like.
Yeah, be careful about what you ask for. I just graduated from Oral Roberts University with a master's in divinity. I already had a degree in business computer information systems, and I'm on my way. I'm doing entrepreneurship. I've become an entrepreneur, run a business for 15 years, very successful, making 6-7 figures, doing very well. And then I went into pastoring. I wanted to become a pastor, so I got my master's in divinity. It was there at that place in Tulsa, Oklahoma, that I also was simultaneously doing my business, and the business got in trouble. And I'm not going to go through all of the details about that because we don't have all the time here. Just long story short, I just went to trial, got railroaded. That means that they put you on a certain track of making sure you get convicted, and I got convicted. And but that was part of it. Be careful what you ask for is what I come up, right? So I told the Lord, I said, Lord, I want to have a prison ministry.
That's right.
And I asked for a prison ministry, and I got one with extended stay on it.
That's right.
With room and board.
With room and board, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Free room and board, so. But that time, it was something that I learned something about this, that I'm not innocent, but I was not sinless, okay?
Right.
Oh, that's important to know that because God allows things to happen to us for a reason. And because I didn't close that office down soon enough, and in obedience to Him, and wanted to help this other guy that really did the crime, God says, okay, I never told you to do good things. I want you to do God things. So I learned a big lesson of just don't just do good things for the sake of good things. God tells you to do something, do it.
There you go.
And I didn't do it. I was in disobedience, and it landed me in prison.
Well, I'm glad you were able to come to that, realization.
Yes.
Everybody's hasn't gotten to that point yet, right?
Yeah, I'm glad. I think the reason why my success really started because I had that paradigm shift. And I understood. I just went, I'm innocent, and mad at God because I went to prison. When I had that paradigm shift, I realized that that was a part that I played in that process, and I've learned from that.
That was the lesson to be learned, right?
That was the lesson, absolutely. So, and then it just spurred me on, and ignited me to do what I do today.
Yeah. So I know a little bit more about your story. So once you came out, right, you went to work for who? Who did you go to work for?
Actually, I reluctantly applied for a state job, right, working for probation and parole.
Can you believe that?
Can you believe that? No.
Convicted felon.
A convicted felon, and I'm like, I reluctantly applied for it because I thought they were not going to hire me. And just so miraculously, my application fell on the top. And I was the only person they interviewed, the only applicant they saw, and it had a stack like that. And they picked the first applicant and said, we're going to hire you. And I thought, okay, I got a record. And I'm just going to be transparent and honest. You're going to find this out because I give my testimony. And they said, no, you don't have a record. I said, yes, I do have a record, and this is not April Fool's Day. I'm just trying to tell you, this is not April Fool's Day.
Right.
And they said, no, you don't have a record. We got the best background checking system in the world. And I said, well, I said, don't worry about it. They've given you the job. And we were vetted all the way up to the governor's office.
Wow.
And they did. Never found anything. And then I wondered why they never found anything. And I went back and checked and checked and checked and found out that my records were sealed.
Wow.
They were expunged, and I had nothing to do with it.
They did it all because they knew you were the one for the job, and it didn't matter what your background was.
Well, those folks that cheated me in the trial, that railroaded me, wanted nobody to get in my records, and it was to their benefit for nobody to get into those records.
Oh, okay.
So they expunged it, sealed it. Nobody can get into it. If you check it today, you wouldn't even see anything on my background.
Wow.
If I don't tell the story, no one will know about it. But that's part of my Joseph story.
Yeah.
And that's why I tell it. And and it's like, and working for the state of Georgia is pretty cool, right? Working for, probation and parole as a formerly incarcerated individual, now the officers have to work with me and my resource fairs.
Right.
Now they have to shake my hands. Now I'm working with the chief, and the chief is making sure all these officers support what I do because my work is coming from the governor's office.
Right.
So it's really cool having justice and mercy working together.
That is.
And we did a lot of work in the community. We've seen a lot of change, and really was cool. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about Tackle the Shackles.
Oh.
We haven't had a chance to talk about that. Let's
Tackle the Shackles.
Yes, give us the backstory on that.
Tackle the Shackles is when, during the pandemic, I'm watching Kaepernick and people like that take a knee at the football games, and he lost his job. And I thought, the Lord told me, he said, tell people like Kaepernick that we don't need them just to get on their knees. We need them to get off the knees and roll up their sleeves and help reentry.
That's right.
So I started Tackle the Shackles with that intent to work with NFL players to come and co-host with me on Tackle the Shackles. And it become a national reentry coalition, a national one online, and just connecting with people like yourself and other people. And the goal for Tackle the Shackles is really to tackle some shackles, but also to become the next United Way for reentry. So I'm working with owners of the teams, the players, the coaches, and people like that on NFL teams. And the goal is to have the team, whatever in that state, support reentry in that state financially. So we want to become the next United Way for reentry through Tackle the Shackles.
Yeah, and how are you guys making that happen right now?
Right now, we have some relationships connecting. We're starting at home in Georgia. We're working with Arthur Blank and his foundation, and we are connecting with players like Santos Stevens. He played for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Buddy Curry that played for the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah.
We had other players that come on and use their star power.
Yeah.
And it's really cool to have their star power. People are attracted to come, and then we have returning citizens come and tell their story to change the narrative, right? But I really love working with providers for reentry. This is my goal, because when I was working for the state, everybody was going after the state dollars and that kind of thing, and then when a new person comes in, that changes, right? And so we want to start from the bottom up, from the grounds to the ground roots. We want to work with from the ground up, right? And getting an organization like an NFL team to support reentry is the way to do it.
That is true. So the young man, when I last watched Tackle the Shackles, our good friend, here at Social Changemakers, Dr. Ron Garrett, he is the reason why I know these two wonderful people. He is the connector.
That's right.
Yes, he is the ultimate connector of great organizations and great people.
Well, Dr. Ron Garrett is when I met him in prison. I went to minister to him in prison. And the same Dr. Ron Garrett that y'all know today was the same way in prison. He was a change maker in prison. He started the Faith and Faith and Character dorm there, and then one of the first ones that got started, which is just working so well. And he's always just been somebody. He said, I want to work with you. I want to work with you on the outside. Yeah. And he's come out and he's been running and doing great things, as y'all already know.
That is true. And you had a young boy who I guess he had some issues with domestic violence on that show as well. But he was a former NFL player. Are you guys still working together?
Oh yeah, Ray Rice we're talking about.
Ray Rice, that's right.
Yes, and we working, connecting with him.
Yeah.
We haven't actually started doing some additional work after that show, but
Okay.
we're looking to reach back out at him and to help, because he's got some star power. I don't care when he's got that star power. Still, people look up to him, and so we want to bring him under the umbrella. But we're reaching back out at him.
Okay, well, you heard it here. Ray Rice, let's get back connected with Tackle the Shackles, your star power. Mr. Robinson's, I said Robinson, Robbins, the connections he has and the work that he's doing, together you guys can make some great things happen. And if there's any other NFL, former NFL, current NFL players who have not already connected with this young man, it's time to make that happen.
You say cash out for a young man? You say cash out? I'll get paid for that.
Pay me no dollars, no other. So tell us how they can get connected with you if they want to be a part of your the coalition.
Yeah, if they want to be a part of that coalition, tackletoshackles.org. Simply go there and there's a application you can fill out, or just send us your information and we'll get back with you and see if we can connect with you and go forward.
Yeah. Well, I also want to bring up the transitional housing work that you both are doing. You know, you guys, myself and you, we're housing the individuals, and Louise is making sure those individuals stay connected.
And can find housing.
And can find housing, right? So I want to segue into that. We'll talk a little bit about your housing program, and then we'll transition to how the Pokket app is supporting that.
Yeah. Well, we start with relationship capital on the inside. We have some prisons that we contract with. We take the coaches on the inside, we connect with them. They have their reentry plan all set up, and then they come into our reentry house. In our reentry house, we attach a coach to them using Pokket software. They can keep up with all the information. I'll let Louise go more about the Pokket software. But we have a over 98% success rate. They don't go back to prison. They don't always finish our particular program, but our measurement stick is to make sure that they don't go back to prison.
Amen.
And we have not seen them. A lot of them come back and talk to me, and they're not back in the prison. We able to look up their number and see if they're still in the prisons or not went back to prison.
Right.
So we that's our goal, just to give them some kind of relief when they come out. And we know in that first week out, that is a very critical time. It's a vital time. So. That's a place. We give them safety and security there, free food to come with it. We make sure that they got clothing. We don't have clothing, we provide the clothing for them, the coaching, the transportation to get to work, the work. All of those things are within that reentry house called Vital Signs. Why did you name it Vital Signs? Bringing life back into the community. And that's what we do.
Awesome. So he spoke about the Pokket app, about how it, helps the clients that you serve, the participants in your program.
That's right.
How they, it supports the participants in my program as well. So I want to give you an opportunity to just shine some light on the Pokket app, from nuts and bolts, and how it's helping the community.
Yeah, so the Pokket app came about because I had the opportunity to choose what I wanted to do with my life next. I got restructured out of corporate America, and I had that choice. And God was calling me to do something like this, but I didn't really know what it was. And so I spent the first 2 years just listening to people and listening to all their complaints about how broken everything was, and whether that was returning citizens as a whole bunch of people I count as friends on speed dial and prayer partners up here through DC that are part of the RAN up here, probation officers, judges, academics, researchers, service providers. I volunteered in Southwest Atlanta in an entrepreneurship program because I've got that business background, and entrepreneurship is where my heart is too. So that's kind of the genesis. So the idea for Pokket came out of all those conversations, and what I understood was everybody was using different words, but to describe the same problem from their own standpoint. And that was nobody was on the same page. And so all these different partners, a workforce partner, a housing partner, a treatment partner, the PO, they're supposed to be building somebody up, but when they're not on the same page, they just end up pulling somebody apart in different directions.
That's true.
And so I'm like, well, that is a problem I can solve with my own talents and technology skills. So Pokket is really designed to be an information sharing platform to make sure that all the different caseworkers and team members around that individual can talk to each other. But I was interested to hear that our production associate here has background in psychology, because what we've also done is build psychology into Pokket, because what I heard was when people come out, they have been institutionalized. You do not choose, when you get up, what you eat, what you wear, how you spend your time. There are so few choices when you're in prison. All your agency and autonomy has been taken away from you.
That's true.
And so then suddenly, like, your release, it's like you drop off a cliff. You have to manage your time, you have to manage your money, and all this stuff that you probably weren't all that good at before you went in. Because if you were really good at it, you might not have gone in.
Come on now. Preach.
So we've designed it to allow a coach in the beginning to be very kind of directive about, now you need to do this now. You need to get yourself some skills so that you can get a job. You need to do these things, but people need to be brought into the changes in their life, and that's why the coach approach is so interesting. Because it's the coach approach is not doing it for someone. It is walking alongside them while they do it. And so Pocket's really designed to transfer the workload from the counselor to the participant over time. So the participant has their voice, and it's it's tied in with techniques like motivational interviewing and strengths-based. So it's evidence-based, blah blah blah. But it gives the individual a voice. They can message with their coach or PO whenever they want. You talked about success stories. We were using this with a young offenders program in one of the southern states, and we got this funny call from the person running the program. Can they still use Pokket when they've graduated?
Right.
And I'm like, we don't care, sure. And they're like, well, we've got these young people who graduated, but they want to keep Pokket because it gave them structure. But it was also that the staff members, it empowers them. But the staff members were actually giving them information about how to get jobs, opportunities, and so it wasn't you must do this. Oh, hallelujah, I don't have to do it no more. It was, this is useful. Don't take this away from me. And so they decided, all right, we'll extend people for 6 months to find your feet and make that transition.
Just imagine having all the resources you need on your phone.
And being able to help yourself.
In the pocket. It's in your pocket.
And it was Raymond Coates from here in DC who came up with the name Pokket.
Okay.
Because he said,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So nobody can spell or say a syllable. You struggled with it. Everybody struggled with it. But we tried 249 email web domains before we found one we could buy. So we could buy that one.
Right. Okay.
But he said the help you need is in your pocket.
That's
you should just call it Pokket. I'm like, okay, so we got the trademark and here we
There
go.
you go.
So Raymond Coates, if you are out there listening, you made a lasting impact. You
For sure.
Louise Sawyer, I'm sure you know Louis.
I do.
Louis was like the first encourager for me outside Georgia who heard about it from somebody in the BOP and called me up excited one Friday afternoon. I'm Louis, you've been told about me, we need this. And he just so warmed and encouraged me when I needed encouragement. And that's what things like the conference does, right? It connects you with people, reminds you, encourages you. I think there are, the conference is full of people who have been doing new things, even if they've been doing those new things for a while now, right? And I look at the work that you do, Khalilah, and you've done so many different things, right? Lately, you started with this thing, and then you discover another problem, and you're like, well, I better do something about this as well. And you know, you can look at the problem and say somebody's got to do it, and then you can look around. And I looked around and I realized nobody else was going to solve the problem that I was solving. Because God gifts us each uniquely with our experiences and our talents, and I could see why the people you think ought to be solving it didn't have the same incentive. I had nothing to lose at that point, and I felt like through this journey of building the company, as I was like paying developers, writing the check, I'm like, I was moving money from my treasury account, my bank account, into my faith account. And that's hairy, it's scary, but God is faithful, and He shows up. And here we are. This year will be our 10th year as a company.
Phenomenal.
God is good.
Well,
yes, He is. God is always.
She was a lifesaver, by the way, for us when I was working for the state, and I was praying about being able to get everybody to communicate with each other, because I was a community coordinator. We had a bunch of providers and resources, and we had a coalition there where they can come and communicate. But when it came down to the nitty-gritty work of referring people to providers, that information is updated, right? She came there and like was the answer to the prayer. Now, it's been over 7 years ago that I thought, man, we got to have her. And then we've kind of helped with the pilot of that software and build that software. And today, I'm a user. I'm an addicted user in a good way to the Pokket, right?
So tell us all the regions you're in.
Yeah, so we're working here in Prince George's, handling that referral across providers.
And who are you working with?
So we're our newest project actually is in North Carolina with their juvenile justice. And so
who are you working with in Prince George's County?
In Prince George's County, so we're working with DOC and with all
which is the Department of Corrections.
Department of Corrections, which is the jail here. With community partners like yourself, Damascus House.
In Progressive Maryland.
Progressive Maryland. There's a number of partners through Progressive Maryland. We're very thankful for their support of this work. And I think there's the home confinement group, right, that doesn't have that freedom to get around, so it gives them a way to communicate and stay on top.
Those individuals who are on pretrial. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I wanted to make sure we could give a shout out to all the organizations that have said yes to the Pokket. How important it is that we are able to get the Pokket into the hands of as many those who are returning, so they can have access to the resources. So please. Well, and we should
add the Returning Citizen Affairs Division, the department that has supported this too.
Yes. That is true. Our county exec's office, the Returning Citizens Affairs Division, where Michael Williams is the director currently, and he sat in on our housing panel today. So thank you for the support.
Thank you, Michael.
And I hadn't met him in person before, only on the Zoom for Progressive Maryland. So that was great. Great to see people in person. Hug.
So you were about to share with us some new and progressive work that you're doing. So we designed Pokket for adults with reentry, right, to work inside the facility and outside, like your core civic project. But one of our supporters moved into the juvenile justice field and took a look at what was going on there and said, we need Pokket too. And the problem that they are trying to solve is keeping the parent and the youth on the same page with not just the PO, but young people end up with a bigger care team, right? Education and treatment and maybe vocational training and just the court counselor.
And young people don't have the executive function skills. They haven't learned to manage all their stuff and get their poop in a pile. So they need that structure even more than an adult.
Yeah.
But when you look at it from the parent's point of view, you know, my mum was working 2 jobs. When my dad was working, he worked all the hours he could. The communities that those young people in the juvenile system draw from, most of their parents are working hourly, which means if you miss a shift or you miss a half day, you don't get paid.
Right.
And most of those jobs are not paying well enough that you can afford to give up like 10% of your pay for the week and still make it.
Yeah.
So I heard juvenile POs say, you know, why don't those parents ever show up? They never show up. But you put yourself in the parent's shoes, and it's like, do you want me to go to this one meeting and lose my housing so all 4 of my kids and me are on the street, or you want me, like, so it's...
That's real.
That's real.
It's, we put, our justice system too often gives people false choices. So all of that policy stuff aside, we have built a version in Pokket where you can have a guardian and a dependent. So the parent and the child, or that could be a foster parent and the child, and they can all be communicating together. So the happy case is when the child wants to get their act together and the parent supports them, and this works for that perfectly. But it also works for the case where you've got, you know, a parent that is really just struggling, whether that's addiction or depression or whatever it might be, but the child is helping. Now the parent isn't in the way of the child making progress. The child can make progress themselves with the support of their care team. But it also supports the parent whose kid is not telling them anything, right? The kid that isn't getting with the program and is blocking the information, you know, and the parent doesn't know what's going on. So this work can be parent driven, it can be child driven, it can be partnership driven, and you know, there will unfortunately perhaps be some situations where neither parent nor child wants to participate. But from the agency point of view, they can then show, we have offered this family everything. We have done our job. We have done our part. And so that voice is important, that structure is important, and then for the agency it's important for them to be able to show we have discharged our responsibility. So it's it has all the resources, it has all the messaging, it has the case management, it has all that stuff, but it's also got this way to really involve parent and child together.
And you know, one thing, the one component about it that I love is that, you know, especially for our returning citizens, that they have the control over it. So let's speak to that real quick about access and, you know, the way the software in the Pokket, you know, really supports them from a security standpoint. So
working with prison systems is not like working with the rest of the real world, and so we've had to do some special things so that while a person is incarcerated, they can have an account set up and hand it off to the person when they're in the community. And Lee's got a really smart way of doing that. He's came up with this trick. You could call it a hack, but it's legitimate. But they have their own account. The individual can connect with resources and choose to share their information. This is HIPAA conformant as well, which means if you don't refresh that share each year, it's going to stop until you reapprove. So that sharing approval being under the returning citizen's control when it's interagency allows us to be HIPAA conformant, but that model works with just about anything else too. And I had problems with POs saying, well, what if somebody stops sharing? Well, you know, how do you know if somebody's gone off the rails today? 3 weeks after they went off the rails, you discover they don't show up at their appointment. Well, you know, if somebody stops sharing with you, you might want to reach out and ask what's going on and why. And you have that earlier opportunity to intervene. So, you know, it provides an opportunity for really somebody to cry for help too at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And early intervention, especially when you're looking at something like addiction, if you can catch somebody out when they immediately fall off the wagon and you can still bank some of that sobriety. But if you've been off the wagon for several weeks, then that whole 6 months probably is lost.
Well, I'll tell you another way that the returning citizen gets to benefit from the software is that it's where they have the ability to go into software and search for resources that they need.
Never mind the needs assessment.
Right.
I
need this.
Yeah.
And they can go by zip code and find out a resource in that area.
Yeah.
Who's going to be more up and about to want to get the resource? The one that has the need.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to wait for your coach. You don't have to wait for some case manager.
Right.
You have access to this tool to do it yourself.
Yeah, that is
I
great.
really love that.
Well, and you can define what your needs and goals are.
That's right.
When I was spending that 2 years researching, the question every researcher wants to know is, what does it make somebody turn their lives around?
Mm-hmm.
Every researcher wants to be the person that writes that paper.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And so we tried this program, that program. What I heard was, I wanted to be a better dad than my dad was to me.
Mm-hmm.
Now you look at the needs assessment and the dynamic and the static and all that stuff, it ignores the parent factor.
Mm-hmm.
But like all the panels today, right? If you can show that person, all right, your goal is you want to be a better dad than your dad was. Now they know what they're doing. Now you can ask as a coach, saying, what are you going to do? They might not have all the answers. You can help with some answers.
Right.
But being able to say, this is my goal. This is what I'm working towards. You want to see your kids? Well, you need to pay your child support. How are you going to pay your child support? Well, maybe you need a job. All right. But now getting a job is not about getting a job. Now getting a job is about being a better dad to my kids
That's right.
than my dad was to me.
That is good. I'm glad. I like the way you wrap that up. That is just perfect. So, what I'm going to ask each of you to share with your vast history, the success you guys have had, the different environments you've all been in. Give us I would say, a best practice on staying on top, being successful. What would you say was that key factor or that best practice that you have that helps you be the change maker that you are today?
Listening. And the biggest thing is when somebody says no, don't just go, well, you got to do this, right? Or they don't want to. When you get a no, go, help me understand why you think, why you think that, why you think this won't work, what the obstacle, and the important thing about that is then that environment becomes part of the change. So this is the really important thing, is you cannot do to, you have to do with and do by, and not just do to and do for. That's the best practice.
That is good. That is good teachings there.
And I just have to ditto on that. I mean, we have returning citizens that we're working with. They have some knowledge that we need to know. And we have to bring them to the table. And we have to listen to them. Because they know what's hurt them, what can help them. And we've been telling them what to do. When you're at mom and dad's house, they telling you what to do. You go in the schoolhouse and they tell you what to do. You end up going to
the big house
and they tell you what to do. And nobody asks you what you're going to do. So just being a good listener, let them tell you what they need. And that's where the coach approach is so beneficial. And just begin to listen to that and be innovative. I've been innovative. I've been willing to change and to adapt and water around the rock when we have to. Don't be so stiff-necked about the way we used to do it. This is how we've done it all the time.
This is my idea must be right. Your idea does not have their experience.
I call that mission myopia. That means you're nearsighted, right? And everybody got to see it like you see it. But if we start opening up our eyes and more of our ears, then we can see further and we can help more people. So being innovative and open.
And I would add another thing.
Mhm.
So we talked about this at the breakfast yesterday
Mhm.
about trauma informed.
Okay.
Mhm.
And as a corporate leader, I was never taught about trauma and how
Mhm.
trauma makes people think and behave and respond.
Mhm.
And so if there is ever an end to what I'm doing, and I have no idea when that could be, but like the other thing that I've developed a passion for is really communicating with other leaders as employers about trauma and trauma care.
Mhm.
You know, when somebody has a really different way of thinking, often it's tied to a trauma.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
And you know, when somebody is re-traumatized because something triggers and reminds them, they can't hear you, right? You just, there's something happens in your brain, you can't take that input. And so I have become a much better people manager,
Mhm.
and, you know, and now I'm employer, by understanding about that. And like, golly, I can now see I had people on my teams when I was in corporate America who were experiencing that. I didn't have the words.
Right.
I didn't know what it was. I didn't know how to deal with it. And usually it ended up not great.
But most of the times, the individuals who are triggered don't even know why they're triggered. And when you are able to recognize that when you're trauma informed,
Yes.
it just makes things a whole lot better. We go through that process. We take all of our employees through trauma informed care because of the populations that we serve, especially when you're talking about our young people who may be dealing with that in our mentor program. There's any little thing.
Yeah.
If you're a foster child, this is your cup. This is a raggedy cup. It's a McDonald's cup, and I pick that cup up and I take it and put it in the trash, and this child goes haywire, and you don't understand why. If you're not trauma informed, if you're not trained in that, you may respond in a way that's just going to make it worse for that individual. Without understanding that maybe because she's in foster care, the last time she took a sip out of this cup, she was sitting with her mom and dad, and that cup reminds her of that encounter with her parents who she's no longer with. So when you can understand it, you may not even know that story, but when you're trauma informed,
and you can recognize
the traumatic reaction
and realize you've got to deal with
People respond to it.
Yeah.
They respond to it differently, and this is when I talk about pain, I'm talking about trauma. And I responded to trauma in a different way as a young boy. When my dad left at 4 years old, I felt the rejection of a loved one, and I thought, I'm not that valuable. And you know, if my daddy don't want me, then I guess nobody really wants me. So I grew up thinking, well, I'm going to be an overachiever, right? I'm going to get people to accept me, and I'm going to be valued. And I look for that on the outside by being an overachiever.
Which he is.
And I didn't come to grips with that until later on, after achieving a bunch of stuff. And I'm like, then the Lord said, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? And I just want to be accepted. I just want to be full. And so then I learned now how to leverage trauma. I learned how to leverage pain and use it to the benefit of not just myself, but other people. So if we can learn how to take that trauma and use it for something good and help somebody else that's gone through the same thing and identify with their pain, then we get healed directly, because that's a seed. When you give it out and helping somebody else, that's a seed, and the harvest is coming back to you for your own healing. So it's the wounded healer.
Amen. Well, thank you for that. So the nugget I get from this as it relates to best practices, especially in best practices dealing with the populations that we serve, trauma-informed care training for your staff. It is vital. It's vital for the success of your staff members, and it's vital for the encounters that they're having with the clients that they're serving. Right? Well, this couldn't have been a better podcast. We've covered so much. I'm so grateful again. Thank you, Louise, for coming on. If anybody wanted to get in touch with you and learn more about Assimilate. And
Go
the
girl.
Pokket app.
Yeah.
Please share that information with
Yeah.
us.
So our website is www.civilate.com, and there's a sign up place there.
Okay.
But I am Louise Wasilewski, Wasilewski, the name that keeps on giving. There is only one of me on LinkedIn, so I am real easy to find on LinkedIn. If you can spell my name, rewind the video and get that.
Well, you won't have to do all the rewinding. We're going to put it on the screen for you so you get that spelling correct. Yes. And, one more time, just share with us how they can connect with you.
Yeah, you just by my name, LeeRobbins.com. Lee, L-E-E, Robbins, ROBBINS.com. And from that first page, you can find all of our resources at the bottom. Go there and get my book while you're at it.
That's right, because you're an author too. I tell you, this man is the man. He just keeps on living.
And is the man behind First Week Out,
Oh,
which is an
right.
award-winning movie
Yes.
about Larry, who was in
for 42
Yes.
years, came out first week out.
into
That was
one
a
of the
really
vital
good-
signs housing.
I remember the documentary. I watched the whole thing. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and that's how you can find out how to get connected to us. And thank you so much for having us.
Yes,
And
for
Absolutely.
sure.
we appreciate
For sure.
that.
Yes.
This was a well worth trip from Georgia. And we finished
Right.
it up like this.
Yes.
There we go.
Phenomenal.
Yes.
Well, there you have it, friends. We couldn't end it any better than this. So please subscribe, hit that the like bell or the bell, hit the like. You know what you need to do. Follow us. Let us know in the comments if you like this content. And we just look forward to, bringing more impactful individuals who are social change makers in their own way and in their community. So until next time, this is the Social Changemakers Podcast signing out.